their videos on, and staff are going to turn their video off. And if they choose to be recognized to speak, then just turn your video on at that time. Thank you. Good evening and welcome, everyone. Welcome to our council meeting for Wednesday, February the 10th. I want to thank everybody who's joined us from home, from the comfort of your home, and also those who are on the call tonight, both residents of the town who are going to delegate with us, and also staff for being with us tonight. I appreciate everybody putting themselves on mute. And please feel free to turn your camera on should you wish to make a comment. We are both audio and video recording and live streaming the town on the Town of Innisfil's YouTube channel, and it shall form part of the record, which will be retained according to the town's retention bylaw. And for more information about that collection, you can contact the clerk's office. So our first event for the evening is open forum, and I will just check with the clerk's office to see if anybody has signed up for open forum this evening.
Thank you, Worship. No, we do not have any person to speak at open forum this evening.
Thank you very much, Deputy Clerk Thomas. So the next item is item 3, the approval of the agenda. We did have a late request staff report regarding approval of a single sourcing that was added. So we'd need 2/3 majority by the procedural bylaw in order to amend the agenda to add that. So I'd ask if there is appetite for that, if I could ask for a mover and a seconder. Deputy Mayor Davidson and Councillor Nicol. All those in favor of the approval of the agenda with the amendment? Any opposed to that? Seeing none, that's carried. Next, I would ask if there's any disclosures that anyone would like to make, any conflicts of interest on tonight's agenda. If one becomes apparent to you through the evening's events, please just let us know at that time. So item number 5 is presentations and petitions. And we do have a presentation from one of our hardworking committees tonight. So I would ask that members of our Heritage Advisory Committee please turn on your video, and I will turn it over to the chair of that committee, Councillor Payne, for some opening remarks. Councillor Payne.
Thank you, Your Worship. If I could just do a small introduction before Deb comes on. Just something about the Heritage Committee. The members that we have are the Vice Chair, Deb Crawford, members at large, Jan Blomart, Elaine Splett, and Andrea Harper. And just some information, the Heritage Advisory Committee works with the community and staff to build awareness of local heritage matters. They advise property owners on appropriate conservation maintenance practices and assist property owners to determine the value of heritage resources for protection through designation. Our Vice Chair, Deb, she's going to share the presentation. So if I can just welcome Deb and say thank you for coming forward and speaking to council.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. So I would at this time welcome any members of the Heritage Committee to please feel free to turn on your video, and I'll turn it over to Deb Crawford, Vice Chair. If I can see her on.
There's Jan.
Jan and Andrea, I'm just wondering if I can ask the deputy clerk, I thought I saw Deb's name earlier this evening. There she is.
Oh, there she is.
You just have to unmute, Deb. Jan and Andrea. There you are. Yes, we got you now.
There we go. Am I working for you now?
You are working for us now.
Perfect.
The floor is yours, Vice Chair Crawford.
Thank you.
Oh, there she is.
All right.
You just have to unmute, Deb.
Can you hear me now? Yes. Okay, great.
Your worship, it sounds as if perhaps Ms. Crawford has the YouTube playing in the background.
There we go. Am I working for you now?
You are working for us now. Chair Crawford.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Crawford, do you have the YouTube going as well as your video?
Can you hear me now? Where did we go? Okay, great.
Your worship, it sounds as if perhaps Ms. Crawford has the YouTube playing in the background.
You are working for us now.
I have no idea what I have done here.
It's sounding better now. So whenever you're ready.
Is that working now?
Yes.
Okay, so I apologize for that. Thank you very much for Carolyn for the introduction. So just to formally kind of start, Your Worship, Deputy Mayor Davidson, councillors, staff, tonight's audience, thank you so much for letting us take up your time on tonight's agenda. As you know, next week is Heritage Week, and we always get a chance to celebrate some of the good things that we've been doing and kind of step back and relook at what our challenges are. And so we have a bit of a presentation for you this evening. Kevin, I believe you're doing the honors, so if you go to the next slide, please, that would be great. And so just really to look at, I know Councillor Payne did a bit of an overview of what the role of the committee is, but we have a little bit more of a focus and talking about some of the things that we've been doing for the last couple of years and where we're going and giving an opportunity for some questions. So we'll just move right ahead, and if you could, next slide, please. So I'm sure everyone on council knows that we are appointed at your discretion, and we only have an advisory role. We don't make any decisions, and we're volunteers, and the role is overall defined by the Ontario Heritage Act. So not a lot of discretion. We know that the Ontario Heritage Act is under review for some changes, and that is always a bit of a challenge, and we'll see where that lands in the next year or so. So next slide. So then the role of the Heritage Committee is very much to make recommendations to council on heritage matters. And that's development, demolition, alteration. And again, I will emphasize heritage matters maintaining the heritage registry. We are always interested in promoting heritage conservation and providing information to homeowners about how they can preserve their properties. I will say, though, that the majority of our effort goes on to the next slide, which right now has been maintaining an up-to-date and publicly accessible heritage register. And it's really kind of interesting when you go back to the Heritage Toolkit and it talks about, well, why do you want to do this? And one of the key reasons is really to promote and foster civic identity and draw attention to some of the heritage assets that are within our community. It is an opportunity to promote our community, to enjoy from a resident perspective some of the past and how that actually fits within the future. So just moving on, the Heritage Register is made up of actually 3 different categories. And it's funny because people get very confused when you start talking about listing and designating and so on and so forth. But the Heritage Register is broken down into actually 3 different categories. One is the properties of interest, or the list. The second are the properties that are designated. And last but not least, of course, are the properties or the communities that are part of a heritage village. And next slide. So the list or the register, which is just adding someone onto this list, and you can get a little bit of a sense of what it looks like on the right-hand side there. But they are simply properties that have been identified of having some heritage value. And on the homeowners, there are no restrictions or obligations when it comes to alterations or maintenance of the property. And the only impact is if the homeowner or owner wishes to demolish the property, then they apply for a demolition application, and the delay on the processing of that application can last up to 60 days. And while the evaluation of the property is determined under the Ontario Heritage Act, which is a local and internal process. The next slide is designated. And this is one of the, I have to say, people almost cringe when you talk about this term, because of course people look upon it as being restrictive. But on the other side of it, it is an absolute beauty, an asset for the community. A labor of love in many cases to maintain these properties and maintain the craftsmanship that actually went into them. As you can see, the register is pretty simple. It's on the left-hand side this time. And I know we have 7 properties on it, and I know there are an additional 3 properties that are under negotiation. The 3 properties on the next slide that were added, the 2, the one on the left, the one in the middle, are both in Churchill. They are on the corners across from each other on Yonge Street and the 4th line. They've been there for quite some time. Certainly the one in the middle was somewhere around 1860, and it was an inn for the travelers coming up along Yonge Street. The Lucas store across was quite the structure in its time. And the one on the right, the Sloan Doherty Short Farm, interestingly enough, was it was the owners who have contacted the Heritage Committee because that they felt that their property had heritage value, and we were able to help them research it and have it added to the designation. And then finally, last but not least, is the Heritage Conservation Districts. And yes, Innisfil has a jewel of a conservation district in Cookstown. As you can see, there's a map there, and the street from, probably the 1905, 1910, somewhere there, you can see the telephone poles. And there are a set of guidelines that dictate the development for that. On the next slide, moving on to challenges, I'd like to turn this over to Andrea, if you will, Andrea, and to take us through this year's challenges.
Hi. 2021 and 2022 challenges is continue to identify and research to build the Innisfil registry, significant properties of culture, heritage value, or interest throughout the municipal, to submit recommendations as appropriate to add properties to the registry or designated heritage properties. So we have some challenges there in getting these properties on the to the registry or designated heritage properties. Next slide, please. Promote heritage conservation within the community, to educate residents on matters related to the historical nature of Innisfil throughout various programs and media outlets. Next, please. Stay up to date on changes to the Ontario Heritage Act and related legislation. Respond to development application and application for demolition, alteration or construction of heritage property. So most of the vacant units or vacant homes are being demolished without being designated. Or even if they're designated, they're being demolished or left vacant without heat, and then they become like inhabitable. So those are the challenges.
Okay, thank you, Andrea. And we're going to move to our last slide. Jan, if you can take this one on.
There we go.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. On behalf of the Innisfil Municipal Heritage Committee, I'd like to thank Innisfil Council for your support of our important advisory committee. We thank our chair, Councillor Carolyn Payne, who gives of her time and for her interest in the heritage of our town. Deputy Clerk Kevin Jacobs has been invaluable for the functioning of the committee in too many ways to mention them all. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts, Kevin. I'd also like to mention our former member, Roger Johnson, who had to retire from the committee due to ill health. His knowledge, enthusiasm, and efforts to protect the Cookstown Heritage District will be missed. We appreciate Chris Cannon, planner, placemaker for the town of Innisfil, who attends our meetings and providing advice and guidance. We will continue to do our best to fulfill our duties to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks to all of the team, and thanks for being here with us tonight, giving up your evening. Very much appreciated. Anything else to add before we go to questions from council?
Not at all. Go ahead with the questions.
Okay, thank you. I'll turn it over to council now. Questions or comments for the committee? Councillor Orsatti.
Thank you very much, Deb and Councillor Payne, and to your committee members for the presentation. I'm just wondering, and I may have missed it because I was looking at the slides. Do you have an idea of how many properties or homes there are left to register in Innisfil? How many are pending?
Thank you for that. We have a list of properties which are, I would call an it's an inventory. It's an undocumented internal kind of working list where we've taken pictures and we have some description. So it's sort of a work in progress. There are 200 properties on that list.
Oh.
Obviously, not all of them would move to be designated, but certainly they are of some heritage value to be determined, I suppose, at some time in the future.
Thank you. And it is, with the committee and bringing these buildings to our attention, it's wonderful on council to hear the stories that you put behind each building. And it would be, sometimes I envision, like, I think it was the Lucas store. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we could just see that redone to the way it originally was?
Thank you, Councillor. Other questions or comments from council? I just wanted to add my thanks to all of you for your hard work. I know it's not an easy committee at times. There's people who resist or either don't see the value, and I know it can sometimes be an uphill battle. I want to echo your comments about Roger Johnson and the work that he put in. He did a lot of heavy lifting when Cookstown was debating whether or not to go with a heritage conservation district. And he was a stalwart champion at all times. So very sorry to see that he is no longer a part of the committee. I will tell you though, hot off the press, that Council did meet earlier this evening in a closed session to discuss a personnel matter, and it was appointments to the Heritage Committee. So I'm happy to tell you that we received better response and wonderful candidates, and many of them, it was a very difficult choice. We were only going to appoint one, but fortunately, the Historical Society, which is granted 2 appointments, only has 1 filled, so allowed for us to fill that one as well. So we were able to pick 2 of the candidates off the list, and I can tell you that your new colleagues that'll be joining you are Andrew Payne and Bert Vanderdonk. So you will, I know, take them under your wing, teach them all they need to know and get them up to speed, and they'll be with you until the end of this term. And with that, I did have one question, and it is in regards to an article I was reading, and unfortunately I just got to glaze over it. I didn't get to read the whole thing, but it was, Barrie was handing out some heritage awards and for Heritage Week. And I was wondering if you knew anything about that program and whether or not those homes are actually registered, or whether they just pick homes that are heritage homes and give them some kind of award. So if you aren't familiar with it, I'll send you the newspaper article, and maybe it's something Innisfil could look at in the future.
I did see the article of the program that they offer, and it was pretty exciting. I don't know whether it was actually, the property is actually designated or just sort of a labor of love from a person who has restored and refurbished a heritage home. And it's something to look into. I we're sort of limited. We had hoped for Heritage Week that we would be able to, pardon the expression, but plaque some of the, certainly the 3 homes that have been designated in the last year as part of a celebration. However, COVID and lockdown and emergency legislation and so on and so forth have prevented that. So that's still in our future.
Thank you for that. And yeah, COVID definitely has put a lot of plans on hold, particularly Innisfil with our 200th bicentennial celebration as well. So there'll be a lot of celebrating to catch up on once we get past this pandemic.
Yes.
So seeing no other questions or comments from, Councillor Asadi, go ahead.
Just a comment that Councillor Payne had shared with us for the closed session, that the person who was elected to the Heritage Committee with the same surname is of no relation, or that she is not aware of that person, because the public sometimes assumes that, these are family members.
Thank you for that, Councillor. So with that, we have a recommendation that the presentation regarding the Heritage Committee annual update for 2021 Ontario Heritage Week be received. And that would be moved by Councillor Payne and seconded by Councillor Van Berkel. And all those in favor? That is carried. We thank you very much again. Please feel free to sign off now, or if you are council junkies and you want to watch the rest of the meeting, you can just turn your video off and stay on and join us. It's totally up to you. But thanks again for being with us, and especially virtually. We know it's a bit challenging. Thank you. All right, so next is item number 6, which is delegations. I believe we have no delegations this evening. Number 7 would be updates from county council, municipal associations, conservation authorities. Any updates from anyone? Councillor Nicol?
Thank you, Worship. I know it was already in the news and that, but I just wanted to reiterate that the Wasaga Valley Conservation Authority had their AGM on January 22nd, and we elected a new board of directors for the following year. And Chair Marianne McLeod is the councillor for Town of Collingwood, and Vice Chair is Gail Little, councillor of Township of Amaranth. So looking forward to working with them for the next year and possibly longer as we round up this term. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other updates? Deputy Mayor? Nothing? I'm sorry, I thought I saw your hand. Anyone else? Councillor Asadi?
Thank you. Just wanted to share an update with the library board. With one of the agenda items is the notification of February being Black History Month, and Innisfil libraries are celebrating that throughout the month. Encourage residents to go online for their virtual offerings, everything from music, guest speakers, featured books, authors, opportunities to look at live cooking demonstrations through the virtual opportunities, and throughout the whole month. So encouraging counselors as well as our community to look into that.
Thank you, Councillor. Anyone else? Mr. Rayner.
Thank you, Worship. Members of Council, good evening, everyone. Just wanted to take a moment to introduce the public to our new interim director of growth, Mr. Leo Deloyd. I invite him to turn on his video, Your Worship, just so he can give a wave. Always difficult to onboard people in this very challenging time of the pandemic, but very excited to have Leo joining us here at the town of Innisfil as Director Kane moves into a full-time position of director of the Orbit, or Orbit Director, to make sure that we've got all the horsepower behind that project we need to deliver that amazing vision of council. Leo's joining us he's actually taking a break from his consulting practice for this gig, which is wonderful. He's got over 35 years of experience in urban and regional planning, strategic planning, economic development, and social planning with the city of Burlington, the town of Ajax. And we're just delighted that Leo is with us here to help guide our growth in this very exciting time, but busy time. So the departments that are in growth, of course, CDSB, our building and bylaw, planning and engineering, and economic development will report to Leo, and we're excited to have him here. Thank you, sir, for joining us. Thank you, Worship.
And welcome to Innisfil, Mr. Deloyd. We're very pleased to have you, and you'll have to get your running shoes on, because we're a community that's in action all the time, and we look forward to working with you. Thank you. Any other question or any other updates from members tonight? I'll just give you a quick update from the County of Simcoe. They declared March It Starts campaign to reduce racism and discrimination. And there'll be some materials you'll see will come through throughout the month of March, particularly on social media. This is, I think, the 7th or 8th year that the county has done this campaign, and it's been quite successful in stamping out racism and discrimination in our communities. Also, from Simcoe Muskoka District Health Unit, things are moving quickly, and the pivot never stops. So I just wanted to, I'll leave it up to our update on emergency planning. I'm sure we'll cover most of what we also cover at the health unit. And also to let you know that I was invited on a call with General Hillier and Minister Elliott and Minister Jones on Thursday, talking about vaccine rollouts and the different stages and phases they're going through. And even though there is not a lot of vaccine supply right now, asking for municipalities to wrap around their health units and provide support and assistance, so that when these vaccines do come, and there will be lots of them, that we can administer them quickly, let the health unit be concerned about getting the needles in arms, and we helping with support for administration and infrastructure. So with that, I'll then turn to whoever's doing is it Mr. Keogh doing the Emergency Operations Center update for this week? Oh, Ms. Ray, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Council. As many of you know, the province undertook an enforcement blitz in Simcoe County over this past weekend, with participation from local enforcement agencies, including South Simcoe Police, the SMDHU, and Town Bylaw. Overall, the operation was successful, with compliance being higher than expected, and businesses with issues identified were provided with some time to ensure compliance before further enforcement measures were undertaken if necessary. We continue to work with our partners at the Ministry of Labor on this initiative. You may see some initial reports in the media on the blitz, and from the town of Innisfil's point of view, we can tell you that we did see a lot of great examples of compliance from our local businesses. We hope to release our own data and numbers next week. There is a concern about new variants being in the community, so we're asking residents for their continued vigilance, especially when it comes to wearing masks, as the new variant is much more transmissible. The town has been participating in the Stay at Home Ontario campaign since the end of January. We have been pushing it out over social media, and the health unit and South Simcoe Police are helping by sharing positive stories of businesses following good practices. We're happy to share that ice rinks are open at Innisfil Beach Park as of Monday, February 8th. Regulations have been amended several times in the past weeks to provide clarification on businesses that are permitted to open. The town continues to communicate with residents through virtual and digital channels, including setting up virtual document commissioning and dog licenses online. And finally, as Your Worship touched on, we're excited to share that we're actively working with the health unit and other local health partners to determine a local COVID-19 immunization site in Innisfil. We'll be sure to update our residents when more information is available. So we're continuing to wait for more details on vaccination rollout, but this is certainly a positive step forward for our community and our neighboring municipalities.
Thank you very much for sharing that. Does anybody have any questions for Ms. Riley? I would just like to say that I understand that people, that there is some confusion and that people get frustrated with things that change so frequently, but it's the nature of the beast. We have to be able to pivot when numbers change, and we have to be able to change. And so part of the reason that our Emergencies Operations Center continues is because we want the ability to quickly be able to adjust to whatever the conditions are of the day. So we'll continue to do that, and certainly happy to have this report come to council to make sure council's up to date with what the Emergency Operations Center is doing, and also, of course, our residents are watching as well. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 8, which is the consent list. So we'll go through this consent list and see what items people want to pull into committee of the whole for further discussions. So item A1 is the special council meeting minutes dated January the 13th. A2, the council meeting minutes dated January the 13th. A3, the special council meeting minutes dated January the 25th. B1, the audit committee report dated January the 12th. B2, the accessibility advisory committee report dated January the 12th. B3, the school zone traffic safety advisory committee dated January the 21st. C1, repeal of interim control bylaw 059-19 regarding downtown commercial interim control. Councillor Sadi?
Hold that one, please.
Thank you. C2, South Simcoe Police Service 2021 cost sharing ratio and 2021 operating and capital budget. C3, LAS natural gas appointment and retainer agreement. C4, support for municipal finance officers, letter to the Ministry of Infrastructure concerning Ontario Regulation 588-17. It's just basically asking for more time because of COVID. Fairly straightforward. C5, 1878 Innisfil Beach Road Heritage Designation. C6, that would be the staff report regarding part of 2220 Guilford Road sale to the County of Simcoe for road widening. C7, the statutory holidays for 2021. C8, the approval for single sourcing. That was the item that was added this evening. Deputy Mayor Davidson?
I'd like to pull that, please.
D1, consolidated linear infrastructure environmental compliance approval proposal. Councilor Van Berkel?
Yes, Your Worship, I'd like to pull that.
Next is bylaws. The first bylaw is the Innisfil's approved rates for water services and wastewater services. E2, a bylaw to amend the load restriction periods for the town of Innisfil. F, correspondence for action, we have none. items under correspondence for information. Is there anyone who wants to pull any of those items that are on here this evening? I did want to just say that for Toque Tuesday, unfortunately, my toque came too late, so I've got it for tonight. Our proclamation for raising the roof. So we've got our toques and we'll wear them with pride for raising the roof and ending homelessness. And again, I just wanted to highlight the proclamation for Ontario Heritage Week that is also on that list. Okay, so our consent list is the recommendation as the items that were pulled, C1, C8, and D1, if that matches with everybody else's records. I'd like a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Fowler and Councillor Van Berkel, all those in favor? That's carried. So our first item was C1 and, council resolve into committee of the whole. My apologies. Councillor Payne and Councillor Nicol. All those in favor? That's carried. And now we'll go to our business items and item C1, and that was Councillor Sadi.
Thank you. I didn't do this ahead of time. I'm looking for a seconder. I'm not looking to change the recommendation. Thank you, Councillor Nicol. So I wanted to speak on this item. Just to say that from my perspective in speaking with the residents, I agree with the staff report to repeal this, the interim control bylaw in the section of Innisfil Beach Road that runs from the south side of Lakelands up to the 25th and excludes the properties on the water. And the reason that I support this is when the interim control bylaw was extended, it was extended to May 8th. But if we continue with that time frame, it prevents residents from putting in building permits or property owners, even if they wanted to add a deck or some small enhancements to their house that are allowed for this area. So I certainly, and residents had wanted to be able to get on with their life. So I think repealing this as soon as possible makes sense from a resident perspective and those requirements. The one thing that did come up in questions though that I didn't have an answer for, and I was remiss in clarifying with staff and maybe if Mr. Pierce is on the council tonight or Ms. Nordstrom, they'd be able to answer what is the process then for when there was the portion that was also those on Lakelands that was removed from the interim control bylaw and this, how when do they go to the county to be removed, the ones on Lakelands and what is the process for this one as well to tidy up those loose ends so that we can inform residents that that's all been handled? Is Ms. Nordstrom or?
Thank you. I'll call on Ms. Nordstrom, please.
Hi, sorry, through you, Mayor Dolan to Councillor Sadi. Sorry, I'm having video issues. So here we go.
We can hear you.
Okay, so yeah, in terms of the designation that continues to apply to the Lakelands property, that would be as something that we have will be looking at as part of our next update to the official plan. There's also a future project that is approved in the recent budget for next year that will be looking comprehensively at our commercial land needs and updating those designations in our official plan. So there is two opportunities, whichever is the sooner of the two, we would be looking to redesignate those lands on Lakelands.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor of the recommendation? Any opposed? That is carried. Next is item C8, the approval of single sourcing, and that's Deputy Mayor Davidson.
Thank you, Worship. I've put some thought into this. I think single sourcing is a dangerous road. We've been down it before recently. So I'd just like to sort of prepare, have a statement I'd like to read regarding my concerns with the Rizzardo and this open tendering process. Tonight, Council, we are being asked to abandon our standard procurement procedures. For those listening.
Excuse me just a minute, Deputy Mayor Davidson. So are you moving this recommendation?
Yeah, I'm moving it. I need a seconder.
Okay.
Bill Van Berkel.
Is your seconder. Okay, go ahead now.
Okay. Tonight, Council, we are being asked to abandon our standard procurement procedures. For those listening, the town's procurement policy protects you as taxpayers when we buy stuff. It's important, very important, because it allows us to get the services and products we need for the best price. But senior staff is asking us to forego this competitive process and go straight to a single source method to obtain property management for the Rizzardo Health and Wellness Center. First, I have to say, I cannot support staff's recommendation for single sourcing. I say this simply because I support a competitive process in procurement to protect taxpayers. So no, I will not be supporting this. But there is a bigger problem here. As you know, I have been critical, sometimes very critical, of how we are managed here in Innisfil. I don't mean council. I mean our senior staff have not managed our town well and are wasting taxpayers' money. This is a good example. Staff are asking us to hire some firm to manage the Rizzardo building because our town doesn't have the resources to do it. Are you kidding me? What's next? Do we hire some firm to manage town hall? We have lots of buildings and facilities in Innisfil. Yes, we outsource some things, but you know what? We manage them. But somehow the Rizzardo is so different. It's a building. We know how to manage buildings. So another no. I have to say I am deeply concerned. The Rizzardo has been breathing a stride from the very beginning. On the capital side, it has cost much more than it was initially projected by senior staff. On the operating side, you know the part that is supposed to keep us healthier? Well, it has failed to work. There is no walk-in clinic. Senior staff have always come to council with excuse after excuse. Each time they come, it costs us more. Well, I'm not about to accept another excuse that ends up costing taxpayers more. Staff need to get their act together and manage our community resources better. Perhaps that should be our first priority we set when we hire a new CEO. I will not be supporting this motion. Thank you.
Then Deputy Mayor, I don't think you should have moved it.
I wanted you to get my point out there.
Yeah. So if you're not going to, if you're speaking against something, it's
I'm
probably
allowed to speak on something and whether I support it or not.
that you move the motion. So
Yes.
is there someone else who would like to move the motion? Okay, Councillor Nicol and Councillor Van Berkel, are you still okay with your seconding it?
Yes, my problem is, if I can speak on it for a second, I don't have a problem with the motion, but I do have a problem with, single sourcing, and then I don't believe that that's a good idea. And I've been in business for a lot of years, and when you need something done, you got to go out to the market to see where your best prices come from. I have a problem with that anytime we do that. So yeah, I'm against that. So I shouldn't be moving it seconder either.
Okay. So is there somebody who would second the motion so we can have some discussion? Councillor Orsatti. Mr. Rayner?
Thank you, Worship. Happy to start to unpack some of those rather accusatory comments from the Deputy Mayor. The first piece to note is that Council controls the process related to Rizzardo from the beginning to the end. We're in the middle of a global pandemic, and what staff are saying to you is that if you want to continue to operate the business as efficiently and as effectively as possible, in a global pandemic, you need the expertise to do that. We're not suggesting that we don't test the market to see what the appropriate pricing would be. We are in fact doing that now. The issue is that the procurement process takes a number of months to work through its normal course. And in this case, it's not recommended to be able to manage the global pandemic that continues to shift regularly. The facility has not been mismanaged. In fact, it's a beacon of how to move forward with capital projects in the 21st century. It recognizes both the community's health needs and marries that with a very innovative financial structure that saw taxpayers putting in only a fraction of the cost of the building compared to other facilities of its nature. In fact, I'm not sure if the deputy mayor was on council when the IRC was approved, but to give you some perspective, if that building had been designed with the same financial structure, we wouldn't still be paying the capital costs associated with that building. There is a significant capital repayment that's designed as part of the financial structure. And the wonderful tenants that we have there, like the dentist, the pharmacist, and other tenants help to contribute to those costs, to pay back those costs. So overall, I think the bottom line for council tonight is, again, to make the decision about Rizzardo and what's in the Rizzardo's best interests. And if you don't want to sole source a management company that can assist with the commercial management of these tenants at this time, your staff are happy to go out and go through a traditional procurement process, which will take a number of months. And as you know, in the pandemic, that might as well be years, given how frequent things are shifting. We're very pleased with the tenants we have in the facility. We're delighted with the success of the facility up to this date. And I think I'm speaking for the community when I say it's a very small minority of people who seem to be, frankly, misinformed about the facts of Rizzardo. Your worship, happy to provide more details if that would be helpful.
Thank you, Mr. Rayner. Yeah, we'll leave it at that for now. I just want people to understand that many residents in this town donated to that building and brought healthcare closer to home, which has always been our #1 goal. And we have been very fortunate to have that building. Unfortunately, by the time we did our grand opening of the final service upstairs, we were already in a global pandemic. So that does make it difficult. These tenants do need some assistance, I believe, and I think this is the proper way to do it. Councillor Waters? Councillor Waters, did I see your hand?
I'm not too sure if everyone else is having difficulty. I've only heard about half of this conversation, so I'm not too sure whether it's just I've been having some trouble with my internet. So I'm not too sure if everyone else is having the same problem. So I've only heard about half what everyone has said, but I'll make a comment before my internet cuts out again. I do agree that I do have a hard time with single sourcing. It is an issue that we need to be aware of. I don't think we use it a lot here, and I'm discouraged by the deputy mayor's comments undercutting the staff. I think the staff have done an excellent job in terms of not only what they've done during the pandemic, but also trying to manage the Rizzardo Center, which has had its few difficulties. But I just want to throw my support. I think the staff have done a good job, but I do question the idea of single sourcing. But as I said, I don't think it's rampant on the staff here, and so I just want to make that comment.
Thank you, Councillor Waters, and I do believe it must be your internet because I don't think anybody else has been having an issue. Thank you. Comments, Councillor Orsatti.
Thank you, Your Worship. I too agree with Councillor Waters. I want to recognize the support of and the hard work of staff in supporting our tenants in the Rizzardo Center. I think if we weren't in this pandemic that is going on to a year's time, there would be no need for single sourcing. In the report, it states, I think the pandemic has changed things, that we need to look at things to get quicker assistance to support those tenants and look at the business of that. Those tenants that are in that municipal building are not entitled to the government programs and assistance by that is offered to other tenants in regular retail buildings. So we do need a company that can look at all of this. But it also says in this report that the staff would then begin the evaluation of multiple potential firms. So this isn't picking, although it says single source, it's not just picking one out of the hat. There is, a careful recommendation of that. So I think given this has not been, I have found to be used lightly by the town, I think that where we are in this economic climate and this pandemic, we need to ensure that this Rosardo Center is viable, that it has the services that are available to our residents, necessary services, and we need to bring in whatever we can to support that. And I support this recommendation of the staff recommendation.
I'm sorry, I lost my video there for a minute. Thank you, Councillor Orsatti. Any other questions or comments on this staff report? Councillor Nicol?
Thank you, Worship. I echo Councillor Orsatti's concerns and disappointment with the comments that are made tonight. To me, this is a time-sensitive item. In the middle of a pandemic, we have some tenants that are in our building that need some help, that they would have had some help if it wasn't the structure they have now. Quite honestly, the town isn't in the rental business or shouldn't be necessarily in the rental business. The IRC itself is run by the YMCA. We don't run that building. All we do is maintain the actual structure. So this is essentially the same idea as well too. So we were able to bring healthcare to the Innisfil, but clearly we're not in the property management business. So this makes complete sense to me. Again, time sensitive and understanding the climate that we're in right now. I have no concern whatsoever, and I fully support staff and myself, Councillor Orsatti, Mayor. And Councillor Payne. We've been working with this Rosardo building for many years now, and it's something that's come to life, and it's something that we need to continue to maintain and to provide all of the all the support we can for those tenants that are bringing that healthcare to the residents of Innisfil. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Deputy Mayor Davidson. Please, no more disparaging remarks about staff.
Okay, I respect council's opinions there, where you stand. I think the mandate for the Rosardo Health Center from the very beginning was a walk-in clinic, and through various councils that continued to grow and change and change and change. I think what I'd like to see before we make a decision on this is that possibly we get a capital and operation, an audit done on the capital and operational side, so that we know as council and the public know what we're contending with, what we're dealing with before we turn it over to a management company. And I think a management company should be sourced the proper way. I mean, many corporations are going through COVID headaches right now, and I think they're going to be more scrutiny after when we get out of this, who got assistance and who didn't. So my point is made clear. I'm standing by it, and I would like to see some alternative done. And if we can get that done, that'd be great. Thank you.
Councillor Payne.
I just want to clarify that I have been to that walk-in clinic at least 3 times. So there is a walk-in clinic there. I have been there. I've sat outside and waited for even hours. So I have been in there. So I just want to let you know that, Dan.
It's closed.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Van Berkel, and then we'll move on because we want to understanding what the recommendation is. This isn't a debate about whether or not we should have built the Rosardo Health Center, or maybe whether someone else's vision should have been built. But this is a a decision about whether or not we are going to go out to get purchase some property support. Councillor Ices?
Come on.
Thank you, Worship. Just a little bit of a question on the mechanics of how the property management company would be, I guess, directed. It seems to me the vision behind Rosardo was to have, kind of a one-stop shop for doctors and dentists and pharmacy and whatnot. So by hiring this management firm, are they, what are the controls that we have to make sure that the intended use of the center stays the way council wishes?
Thank you, Councillor Ices. Would that be Director Bowman or Mr. Rayner? What are you going to answer?
Worship, I'm happy to start and ask Director Bowman to comment further. It's a great question, Councillor Ices, through you, Your Worship. The way to think of it, I think, is we're accessing some expertise, and the scope is yet to be determined. But we control the keys to the vehicle in this case. So when we originally discussed Rosardo and when there was a potential for a joint ownership with a number of the pharmacists and physicians, there was a consideration for a management company that would have a very broad scope. So it would include things like property management, asset management, life cycle management, repair, maintenance, cleaning, sanitation, as well as the management of the actual leases themselves. So the negotiation, the terms, all of those kinds of things. But as we move towards full town ownership, the scope changed, obviously, and we have a number of, as a number of council members have pointed out, that we have facilities that we manage. So we don't need someone to clean the facility. We don't need someone to manage the grounds, for example. We have facilities, and we're quite good at doing that work. So the specialized knowledge we're after is really how to help our tenants succeed in the commercial realities that they find themselves in a global pandemic that nobody has dealt with, at least nobody on this call. And so it's how to work with them through this challenge and make sure they get the supports they need, make sure the terms are something that are commercially viable and fair, as we compare to other facilities in the region. And to help us make sure that we can fill that final 1,600 square feet of space out of the 44,000 square feet that has yet to be rented.
Follow up?
Yes, go ahead.
So I guess my question is, how much control does council have when it comes to the makeup of the tenants? If I think about the space that's there, are we going to still have that where we want certain healthcare providers there, so the property manager isn't going to rent that space to make up another business that doesn't reflect the vision of the building that we built specifically for that? Is that we'll be able to maintain that vision for the building through them, is my question.
Mr. Rayner?
Thank you, through your worship. That's correct. As much as I like pizza, we're not looking at another pizza place moving into Rosardo. And council has actually approved a very specific mix of revenue generating, so I dare I say slightly higher than fair market value rents that help to offset the costs of the subsidized tenants, if I can call them that. So the walk-in clinic, for example, and the physicians have slightly lower than market rents. And there is a balance, and actually council approved a very specific formula that is within a range. And I don't want to get into too much details in public because these are commercially sensitive terms, but happy to go in camera and provide that information to you tonight if that's helpful. And if not, of course, report back. But certainly the vision that council decided on for Rizzardo is what staff are executing on, and we're happy to continue to make that happen. The challenge, of course, in this space, as everyone on this call I think appreciates, is that having the space isn't enough. There are complexities in the health industry that Her Worship and I and others have experienced in terms of trying to bring healthcare to this community that make it more complicated than simply providing a nice space at a good rate. There are lots of things at play in terms of where, for example, a walk-in clinic is located. So we can make sure and we can do everything we can to make it possible for those specific services like the walk-in clinic that Councillor Payne attended and encourage them to continue to stay at Rizzardo. But if they don't open because they don't feel it's safe because of COVID, there's really nothing we can do about that other than to continue to try to help them succeed and prepare for the future, which hopefully with vaccines on their way isn't too far down the road.
Thank you. I think Councillor Van Berkel was next and then Councillor Waters.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have no problem with what we're trying to do here. My problem is a single sourcing, and I read the report and it's like $20,000 to $60,000 a year. If we're going to do this, why can't we go out to the market and say if it takes 6 months, take half of that money to help the tenants now, and that way we've gone out to the market. Everything is above board. It's not single sourcing. We've have a lot of input, and we can, look at what all of these companies put in for. So there's more than one way. We don't need single source, as far as I'm concerned. And I'm not. You're right. Staff's doing a great job. I'm not here to, badmouth anybody. I have a problem with single sourcing. And I think if it takes 4 months, take a portion of that $60,000 or $40,000, whatever we think, help our tenants and go out to market in the meantime. And I would feel a lot better about that. That's above board. And I think, our ratepayers can accept that a lot better than go out there and say, yeah, tomorrow we're going to give this out to somebody.
Thank you, Councillor Van Berkel. But the idea isn't to single source. I think the idea is to empower staff to look at many different options and allow them to choose as opposed to go through the procurement and tendering process.
But that's not what it says in the report. Definitely says single source.
So, Mr. Rayner?
Happy to clarify, Your Worship. There are really only 3 ways to address this kind of an emergent, urgent challenge like COVID and the pandemic. One is to have the EOC through the power under the Emergency Civil Protection Act move ahead with a specific procurement because it's an emergency. This council and Your Worship has chosen from the beginning of this emergency to try very hard to continue to follow our standard procedures, which of course is having council approve things and follow our procedural bylaws and our procurement bylaws. The second 2 ways are either a single or sole source, which are specific exemptions in our purchasing policy that permit council to provide that authority to move ahead under certain circumstances where certain criteria are met, or for council to actually waive the purchasing policy entirely. In this case, what we're saying is that there are only a handful of firms that have the specialized knowledge that's needed to manage a facility of this nature, particularly given the global pandemic. There aren't 45 of these companies in the area. There's only a handful of them. And rather than go through the typical procurement policy, process, which will take several months, we are recommending that we, in fact, go ahead and approach those companies in the area that have this expertise, get proposals from them and get them in helping us out as fast as possible and helping our tenants. So it's a fast track, for lack of a better phrase, but by no means do we have someone who we've selected or that has any connection to senior staff. I have no relationships with any of the companies that are at play in this case.
Thank you. Did I see another hand? Councillor Waters.
Thank you, Mayor. I may have missed out, but I think the answer that I was looking for has come during the discussion between Councillor Van Berkel and our CAO in terms of why we're doing this. But so I understand it is that we're not asking one single company that we've already predetermined. We're going to ask three, 2 or 3 companies which have specialized in this area and ask for bids from them. So it's really not a single source, which makes me feel a little better then we've already selected that company. So if I don't know if whether or not pre-qualifications would help on this or whether that would just set the whole timeline behind again. But as long as there's more than one opportunity for different companies to bid on this, I feel a little more comfortable with that. I would be quite concerned if it was just we already had predetermined who this was going to be. So that was just a comment I wanted to make. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other discussion on this topic? So we have Councillor Orsatti.
Thank you. And I think just following up on Councillor Waters' comments, and for myself, although it's referenced as single sourcing in the document, in the report, and why I feel comfortable with this is that not only the pandemic and the need to not delay this by 6 months, because that could cost us a lot more at the center. And I don't know that we could just give away money to tenants in another method, may create more problems. But in here, in this report, for those that are watching that haven't seen the documents, it does say financial consideration. The single sourcing methodology will allow staff to go immediately to the industry and begin the evaluation of multiple potential firms. So it's not one firm that they already have, it's multiple firms, and select an appropriate provider so as to quickly respond to the growing needs of the building and the tenants after selection of the appropriate firm from the multiple potential firms. And that makes me feel comfortable that this is not just sliding in one company sanctioned and we're skipping the process.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments, questions? Deputy Mayor Davidson.
Thank you. I can read what Councillor Orsatti was speaking about, but my last one goes down to options and alternatives. And that's where it contradicts the single source methodology. Here up there it says going to multiple, and then down below it says, should council not wish to proceed with single sourcing. I'm not going to read the whole thing. It's very clear that one is contradicting the other. It says staff can be directed to proceed under normal procurement policy practices. So which one are we doing? Single source means single source. If we're going to 3, that's not single source. That's a triple source. So I think there we have some confusion on the report that was given to us.
It's the wording under a procurement bylaw, Deputy Mayor. Mr. Rayner.
And thanks very much, Your Worship. I can see how the Deputy Mayor is confused now. It's a term of art in the procurement world to speak about single sourcing or sole sourcing. It has a whole body of law and a whole body of legislation that actually comes into play when we talk about that term. So it's really a capitalized term when we talk about single sourcing. And it includes a whole process. I can't put it any better than Councillor Orsatti did. That's exactly what we're doing. It's exactly what's in the staff report. It's not one individual company in this case. It just allows us to move quicker than we would otherwise.
Thank you. If you remember back to that procurement workshop that we had not too long ago, when we spent a lot of time, Ms. Gallo spent a lot of time talking about single source and sole source as part of the Canadian Free Trade Agreement. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we have the recommendation on the floor that was as on the screen, and it was moved by Councillor Nicol and seconded by Councillor Orsatti. All those in favor of the recommendation? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Those opposed? And 3 opposed, that's carried. Next was item D1, which was the consolidated linear infrastructure and environmental compliance approval. Say that 3 times fast. And that was Councillor Van Berkel.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm not trying to change anything here. I read this report, and it has some serious implication money-wise in the future. Probably when it's all said and done 3-4 years from now, it's probably going to work out for us. But the way it looks now, it may take 6-7 staff members, who knows, to do this. And I just wondered if this report has been to In-Services, because they're the ones that are going to be doing it. And if it should not go to In-Services first, to let them look at it and then bring it back to council with some of their recommendations in it. I know that they're probably going to, if it becomes mandatory, we have to do it. But, it's really, right now they can only okay to $100. But if you read through the report, the people who have participated in this already, they say that it's a very difficult thing to do, and it, a lot of staff time. And I just makes me wonder if In-Services in the future is going to have to hire 2 or 3 more people over the next couple of years just to bring this online. And so I wondered if we should bring this to them first and then come back to council with it, because they're going to be the main body to put this in place.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but we haven't got a mover and a seconder on this item yet.
Seconder.
Moved by Councillor Van Berkel, seconded by Councillor Fowler. Okay, so, and comments taken. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Nicol?
Sorry, Your Worship, I was just looking to get that on the floor for Councillor Van Berkel, but I see Mr. Nyhouse is standing by.
That's great. And I'm really glad you pulled it, Councillor Van Berkel, because this was a big wow for me too, going through this. I actually think it's how we've always should have done things, but getting from A to B is going to be huge.
Yes, and that's why I want to bring it on the floor, because it's like 6 of one and a half dozen the other. Who takes the lead on this? And anyway,
absolutely. Mr. Nyhouse.
Thank you, Your Worship, and to Councillor Van Berkel. We have had some preliminary discussions within services. This report speaks directly to stormwater, because stormwater falls within the town's branch, whereas the sanitary systems falls within In-Services. In-Services has put a report to their board regarding this topic as well. So they are aware of what's happening, but at this point in time, it is a proposal. So we're just letting council know that this has been put forward and is most likely coming our way.
follow up, Your Worship. So really all we're doing is receiving this report till we hear from them, I hope. Because I think it's very important that we as council get their input on it before we vote on anything permanent on this.
Yes, absolutely. So tonight, the recommendation is to receive for information. It's just kind of highlighting what's coming down the pipe. And I'm sure it will be on the next In-Services board as well. And that was actually, a question of mine going through this. Would it make more sense to consolidate and either have the stormwater out of the In-Services portfolio instead of the towns? Mr. Nyhouse, or is that a political comment?
To your worship, so yes, right now the sanitary side is within services, and the stormwater is with the town. This proposed framework is very similar to the drinking water framework that's currently underway that In-Services does complete right now. And I think moving forward, when we find out more from the ministry, then steps can be taken to align them both, or to see if the one town, one team works out, and we can use all resources to help through this.
Thank you for that.
Thank you, guys.
It's great to have a heads up on this, and also for the development industry, because there'll be a huge impact to them as well, and just as far as sediment control and everything during construction. And I think it's going in the right direction. I think it's proper management, but it's really changing the mindset on how we operate our stormwater management. Can I ask you, Mr. Ninehouse, will municipal drains be captured under this as well?
So in the draft ECA that was set forward, there was municipal drains were mentioned, but more in when additional works are going to be outletting into a municipal drain. There might be a process that may need to be followed to allow that to happen. I think it would be good for us to include in the kind of the GIS mapping where our drains are located for the ministry's knowledge, but right now it has not been set out in stone.
Thank you, Mr. Ninehouse. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Orsatti.
Sorry, difficult to find that unmute button, and maybe it's the rest of council that goes, don't find it, Donna. I just want to say that, you know, I read this as receipt for information, but I want to recognize Councillor Van Berkel for raising that good question that I hadn't thought of in collaboration and checking with In-Services and getting their input. So just want to thank him for raising that and give me a little bit of a paradigm check.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we have a mover and a seconder to receive for information. All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. And now we have the RISE recommendation. So we'll rise back into council session to report on the proceedings from Committee of the Whole. And that is moved by Councillor Waters and seconded by Councillor Van Berkel. All those in favor? That is carried. After the RISE recommendation, we have consideration to adopt recommendations from Committee of the Whole. So it's to adopt all of the recommendations that were in committee this evening. And that is moved by Councillor Orsatti and seconded by Councillor Fowler. All those in favor? That is also carried. Next, are there any notices of motion? I see none were received. And next is announcements. Any announcements? I'm going to start. I'm going to say a very happy, oh, she's not here right now, so I'll wait till she comes back. Councillor Waters.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to put a heads up to one of the new programs being offered at the Rosado Center, and that's the What's Cooking Innisfil. And I've let everyone know that I already participated by showing, you know, my cooking skills a little bit by doing a vegetarian lasagna and Caesar salad. I'm challenging the rest of you to stand up to the plate and see what special menus you have that you can offer What's Cooking Innisfil to allow the rest of the town to see your cooking skills, see how good you are behind that stove. So I challenge you all to do a video, and if Dan has the time, I'd love to see him there, because he's the only one who owns the restaurant. So I'm putting my skills up against Dan, which is really a dangerous thing to do.
Can I be the taster?
I guess you want that delivered then.
I do cook with alcohol, Alex.
And Any other announcements? Thank you, Councillor Waters, and we'll take that. Although I will suggest that anybody who wants to eat my cooking might want to make sure they check on their health policy beforehand. Councillor Fowler.
Yes, at this moment in time, the Ice Corp is unable to do the polar bear dip. So unlike Councillor Nickel, I can't go jump in a lake. I did, however, do for council the first phrase for the food bank, where I literally threw myself in a pair of shorts and t-shirt into a snowbank and made a snow angel. So it's not as pleasant and as enjoyable as it looks, but it is for a good cause. Make a small donation and there you go. Make everybody happy and smile, right?
Thank you very much for taking one for the team, Councillor. Other announcements, Councillor Van Berkel.
Just want to announce the sad announcement that we lost 2 members of our community in the last couple of weeks. Rick Ferry and Mike Munshaw, ER Bones, both young people. They're not, they weren't old, and it wasn't from COVID. Both, I think, died of cancer. So very sad. I've known them most of my life. So, just not good.
No, Councillor, I'm so sorry for your loss. Definitely a huge loss for our community, both at the the Churchill United Church, and also the KOA where Bones worked. I'm sure they'll be greatly missed in our community. Other comments, questions, or other announcements? Councillor Sadi, did I see you? Yeah.
Thank you. Just stating that with the pandemic, it allows council members and all of us to attend different virtual workshops. And that in my professional development, I attended the Roma conference, and I just finished the OLA, which is the Ontario Library Association Super Libraries, 5 days of a conference. And there was some really great workshops in there. One of them was what's keeping our CFOs up at night. And I have to say that our Innisfil libraries shine above other libraries. What our libraries have been doing, as many libraries have said that they have also removed their fines. They don't have the room rentals that they're all suffering from. But our library has done the, through their DIA store, different opportunities to create crafts, to create items that are of interest to our residents and bring in a bit of revenue. But it also brings in residents' awareness of how well our library is doing. So, there's a lot to learn in some of these workshops, workload overload, but it really gives an opportunity to see how well we are doing in the town. The other thing I wanted to say to Councillor Fowler, thank you for taking one for the team. With the Ice Corp Challenge, I will admit that with the COVID pandemic, and the extra weight gain most of us are having, I will not volunteer to throw on a bathing suit and roll in that snow. So I'll have to help out another way. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sadi. Councillor Nickel.
Your Worship, just a couple of comments. Councillor Van Berkel and I were able to help celebrate a birthday for the 95th birthday for Doris Baxter a few weeks ago, back in January 17th. Just amazing that I've been to 2 of her birthday parties now, so great to see that. I know council's already received it, but staff and the Lakes Conservation Authority have made an amazing improvement to the Circle Park here in the Churchill Guildford area, and then looking forward to that starting the next few weeks. And with the What's Cooking Innisfil challenge from Councillor Waters, does barbecue is that included as well? Because I'm not master of the barbecue, but that stove thing is not really my not where that just melts cheese for me. So I'm looking to do that as well with you guys.
I'm sure they'll take you on.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other announcements? Well, before I let you speak, Counselor Payne, I'm just going to wish you a very happy birthday today and many happy returns. So from the birthday girl, Counselor Payne.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I'm sorry I had to get up and down, but I had 4 long distance phone calls. So they're wanting to wish me happy birthday. Anyway, it was a good day. I just wanted to, and I haven't really done too much around the town lately, but I went on the computer this morning and I was watching the information on the program for the mayor Hazel McCallion, who passed away, and going back into her the beginnings of when she started on council. It was just amazing watching the transformation of this woman who started as this beautiful woman, and she just kept going and going and going. She was a fabulous lady, and she was my boss for 10 years. I enjoyed working for Hazel, and she's an amazing woman, and she's going to be missed. So I just wanted to sort of watch that and say my goodbyes to a wonderful, great lady. She really was. So that's it for me. Hope everybody stays well.
Counselor Orsatti?
To my knowledge, Councillor Payne, that announcement is in celebration of her 100th birthday.
Yes.
And events are on this weekend. It is not her passing as being discussed.
Oh, no. Oh, I know.
Okay.
Yeah, it is. It was just for her birthday, but it was just, it's, she made it to 100 years, so she's doing good.
Thank you, Counselor. Yes, I would like to, I'm looking forward to hopefully at least getting a phone call with her. Normally I would attend her, she always has a birthday party at her son's house every year, and on the 14th of February, unfortunately, here
it's going to be
she's unable to do that. However, the city of Mississauga is putting out a special book for her 100th birthday. And I did contribute some notes to that. And the other, I also wanted to mention through to Councillor Orsatti, the work on the library. Thank you for that. And also how much I enjoyed the short story contest and the amazing talent, the young people of Innisfil during that short story contest. And to Councillor Van Berkel and Councillor Nickel, I wasn't able to attend the birthday party for Doris Baxter, but I did send her some flowers, and I got a lovely phone call from her. She very much appreciated the birthday flowers. Other than that, I had a couple of announcements. One is I took the opportunity to drop in virtually to the Innisfil Historical Review 200th edition, the book group that was meeting, and dropped into their meeting just to thank them very much for all the many hours and all of the hard work. Much of our 200th anniversary didn't get to happen, but that book did get to happen. So I was very happy to be able to thank all of those volunteers that worked on that. I also participated Monday with the Lieutenant Governor. There was for Black History Month, there was a Designing Leadership in a Time of Change, and it was a speaking group of women who are leading different creative museums, and one of them was the executive director of the Museum McLaren Art Gallery in Barrie. So that was a pleasure. And also I wanted to tell everyone to get your social media going and promote 211. All of our emergency services are promoting 211 as a way to get information to help people who, for any number of services. If there's something that you need, please dial 211 and you'll be able to get matched up with the help that you require, and also hoping that it'll help people dialing 911 less often if they know that they can dial 211 to get the help they can need. So with that, I'd ask if there's any more announcements. Councillor Waters.
Just one I almost forgot about. I sat in on a workshop on passive housing and social housing, and it seems that many municipalities are seeing that that's the way to go in terms of trying to keep operating costs down over the next 50 years for offering social housing for the municipalities. So it was really quite nice to see that we're on the right track with our partnership with Habitat, and that in fact one of our staff, Katie Bailey, had an opportunity to overview that partnership with Habitat in terms of our introduction to going down that path of more responsible housing, social housing down the road. So it was a good workshop, and I'm glad one of our staff was there to kind of tout some of the good things that we're doing here in Innisfil.
Thank you very much, Councillor. And seeing no other announcements, Mr. Rayner, anything for the good of the community from staff?
Not at this time, Your Worship. Thank you.
Okay. All right, then we'll go to the confirming bylaw. May I have a mover and a seconder for the confirming bylaw? Councillor Van Berkel and Deputy Mayor Davidson. All those in favor? That is carried. And adjournment until we meet again. So Councillor Nicol and Councillor Fowler, all those in favor? And that is carried. I want to thank everybody, want to thank all of staff for being with us tonight. And as for your birthday gift, Councillor Payne, we're finishing early. So that's
Thank you.
birthday gift from your friends at council.
I'll have some birthday cake.
Thank you, everyone, and we will see you in 2 weeks. Take care. Thanks for watching from home.
Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.
Night.
Bye.